Hi, it's a pleasure to have you all here today. In this interview series, we are discussing legal topics with experts in the creator industry. And my name is Erika Hubert. I'm General Counsel at Gigapay, and I have the pleasure to be accompanied by a very interesting guest today, Scott Guthrie. I have a small presentation of Scott here under my eyes. So Scott is the Director General of the Influencer Marketing Trade Body, and that's UK's professional association dedicated to securing a robust, sustainable and profitable future for the influencer marketing industry. Scott is also a non-executive director of the Committee of Advertising Practice and a co-founder of the European Influencer Marketing Alliance. Along to that, Scott has also authored different entries in documents and has also been writing a chapter in an academic textbook published by Routledge. Excited to talk about that a bit more in detail later on. But first of all, thank you very much for joining, Scott. You are very active in the industry, and I'm guessing that a lot of people already know you. But for the ones who don't, do you want to add anything? Talk about the publications you made?
Well, first of all, thank you for the warm introduction. It was long, wasn't it? So hopefully it wasn't too boring. Hopefully your viewers are still with us. The only thing I picked up on is you called me an expert, which I'm not sure that I am, but I'll take it gladly with both hands. And thank you very much for the accolade.
No, of course. I do have the feeling that in the space that you've been at a lot of events, talking on different panels. I remember that we met in Paris, where you were actually on the panel as well, and it was a panel on compliance and on certifications for influencers. And I feel like you've been in the industry for a while, right? How long have you been working?
Well, I was just thinking back on that ahead of our talk today, and it's coming up for a decade. 2016, as I started at Ketchum as digital creator influencer relations. That was just on a 6-month fixed-term contract, but here I am, 9.5 years later, still doing it.
Oh, that's really cool. Do you have have you noticed a lot of progress in the industry? I guess in 10 years must have been a lot going on.
Yeah, I think, we're growing at speed, and, with growth spurts come growing pains. And we've experienced, lots of very positive growth in the last decade, but we've also, had some missteps around misleading advertising, non-compliance, consumers thinking that a bit of influencer content is organic when it's been paid for. But we're professionalizing at speed. It happens with all industries. You get these growth spurts and growing pains. So it's not unique to influencer marketing. But as I say, we're professionalizing at speed. Even 5 years ago, regulators damned us as the Wild West. And I don't think that's fair to say today. And we do a lot of work at the Influencer Marketing Trade Body with regulators and legislators. And we get it. They get it now. They get the importance of it. And they understand that it's not just for the kids. It's not a fad. It's not frothy. But they're serious people, as in influencers, making serious amount of money and choosing it as a profession, as a career. And so that has changed very, very much so for the positive.
Okay, interesting. And you mentioned the Influencer Marketing Trade Body. Is this what you do there? You are in contact with different authorities trying to drive the progress forward?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. The IMTB, or the Influencer Marketing Trade Body, we're the industry's champion in the UK. We represent influencer marketing agencies, we represent talent agencies and influencer marketing platforms. So the work that we do is to advocate on behalf of our members to increase understanding, trust and investment in our sector. And we do that by promoting responsible influencer marketing. That's creative, that is transparent, responsible and accountable. And we seek to advance professional standards. So what we're trying to do is really just become part of the establishment, part of the old guard, part of like any other advertising channel. But we firmly believe that the surest way to secure our industry's full financial potential is through promoting, progressing and practicing responsible influencer marketing, practice that can be trusted by the public, trusted by advertisers, and trusted by regulators.
Okay, that sounds like very interesting, but also a lot of responsibilities. Um,
Well, listen, we're a small trade body, but we're growing at speed. We've only been around 3.5 years, but we've started off as 6 founders. We're up to 30 members now. So as we expand the member base, so our voice becomes louder with politicians, with the media, with other trade bodies, and so it becomes more cogent to our ecosystem.
Okay, and I've been clicking around on your website a little bit at the IMTB, and I was really impressed with all the documentation you have available. Sounds like self-regulation seems to be one of the big points here. And I was clicking around and I saw two very interesting texts there. So we had the influencer marketing code of conduct and then the creator charter. What are these two documents? Could you talk a bit more in detail about them?
Yeah, of course. Well, firstly, Erika, thank you very much for highlighting the stuff that we're doing and the resources that we're doing. We're continually looking to expand our resources to promote responsible influencer marketing, and both promoting our own work that we do and the work that others have done as well. So we're carrying on being the flag wavers for that. But so with the influencer marketing code of conduct, we aim to do a few simple things. Well, straightforward things. They're not simple, but because we're trying to raise standards of conduct in influencer marketing and advertising. Specifically, we're looking to ensure that advertisers, agencies, and creators comply with regulation. We're looking to improve and professionalize the relationships between advertisers, agencies, and creators, including promoting genuine alignment of values between an influencer and an advertiser. And we're looking to prevent harms which might be caused by content or placement of influencer ads. I think it's important to say just briefly here, Erika, that IMTB co-owns this important piece of work alongside ISBA, the body that represents brand owners advertising in the UK. The Creator Charter, on the other hand, that seeks to promote information integrity, and it acknowledges that increasingly important role that influencers play in the news reporting. So we know from a Pew Research Center study last year that 1 in 5 Americans gets their news from social media news influencers. We know that in the UK, 2 in 5 news consumers say they get their news from influencers. That's according to Reuters, Reuters Institute of Journalism. So there are lots of brilliant news influencers out there, but influencers often they don't have formal journalistic training or qualification. So the Charter looks to promote 4 fundamental bedrock principles of journalism.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's really good.
Well, it sounds worthy, but what we're trying to do is just make sure that influencers sort of know the rules and not necessarily the regulations, but the responsibility that they carry. You know, if thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people are following their words, have they fact checked it? Is it authentic? Has it been authenticated? Is it trustworthy? They might not be seeking to deliberately disinform, but they might be inadvertently misinforming. So they're just 4 simple, a checklist really of principles to get their head round.
Interesting. Now maybe I'm going ahead a bit, but I'm thinking, are you thinking about adding some points about AI in that charter, considering all the fake news and the use of AI?
Yeah, AI is a movable feast, of course, and hugely important. And I think one of the questions that we're going to cover later is, things that we're looking into the future on in terms of the IMTB, especially, the opportunities, but also the challenges and threats that AI presents to agencies, to consumers, and to the industry in itself. So absolutely we'll be embedding elements of AI into the journalism or the Creator Charter, but into the Code of Conduct as well. There is some mention at the bottom in the new version of the Code of Conduct that was iteration 4, end of last year that was published, and that touches on AI. And its endeavour not to mislead the consumer, and there's also touches on virtual influencers as well. But there'll be lots more to come on that for sure. It's a fluid document.
Oh, exciting. I'm already a bit interested. Like I just heard the fourth iteration, so that also means that it's really a document that you're updating quite regularly in that case, maybe once a year.
Yeah, and we do that in concert with the government in the UK, because the IMTB and ISBA, we are part of the influencer marketing working group within the government's online advertising task force, and this is something that the government is keen for us to do as promoting self-regulation. Not relying on statutory regulation. It is making sure that the consumers are protected, but also that advertisers can ply their trade and promote the goods and services without overly being penalised. So it's treading that tightrope.
Interesting. And you're kind of touching on a question I'm curious about. From reading the code of conduct, it looks like transparency is a very important point. Why do you believe that is an important point?
But simply put, Erika, transparency helps influencer marketing reach its full potential, full financial potential. And we're not here, I'm not here to preach. I haven't found religion, but, to make more money, we need to professionalize, and professionalizing starts with transparency, I think. Transparency helps maintain trust with consumers, but also advertisers and with legislators. Transparency helps ensure authenticity, and regulators demand transparency when it comes to labeling advertising content.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I'm also thinking that transparency goes both ways. It's important that the actors in the industry are transparent, but also that the people drafting the laws and drafting the self-regulation, the codes of conduct and everything also show this transparency. I think it gives a good tools for both parts to work.
No, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, another big section in the code is sustainability. Could you explain the main points here, because it was quite a big chunk of the code?
It is a big chunk, and that's a kind of a new addition. Again, that is not a request from government, because we don't just do what the government has said, but the government and the Competitions and Markets Authority, they're keen that advertisers behave responsibly, and we understand the role that influencer marketing plays in forming opinions and driving sales, and we want to encourage responsible consumption of goods and services. We want the creator economy players to stay clear of greenwashing. That's, as you know, where companies sometimes seek to create a false sense of impression that their goods and services are more environmentally friendly than they really are. And there's also mention in the section around being conscientious or conscious when you're product gifting. So avoiding untargeted and unsolicited mass distribution of products in that gifting to influencers as well. Really important, and we're going to see a lot more of that. Obviously, in France, there is the fast fashion law that is about to be, I suppose, set in motion. And we've been watching that very closely from the UK as well.
Interesting. Do you believe that there are some strategies to avoid this kind of mass send-outs of products, things that brands could do to avoid it, apart from actually not doing it?
Yeah, I think so. And what I have to say, in terms of a declaration, that one of our members is a gifting company, Gifter. And they do it very well, very responsibly, because brands really don't want wastage when they're sending out products. And increasingly, influencers, they don't want to be deluged with a whole lot of products that they don't want. They don't want it because it clogs up their mailbox at one level. But really importantly, they are increasingly aware of the environmental impact of all this stuff just being given to them when they're never going to use it. So responsible gifting companies, they identify who is already using products like the products they're about to send. Have they posted about them in the past? Have they done videos about that sort of product in the past? and they can better tailor the content and the gifting, the products and the services to the influencers. And so that should be a win-win, a win for the brand, because they're not wasting a lot of money on product to influencers that don't want the product, and a win for influencers as well, because they're only receiving stuff that they think there's a genuine interest in.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds good. Really good. Um, I had another point here I was a bit curious about. So we have the code of conduct, and then we have the creator charter. And I noticed that there is a very big difference in length.
Yeah.
So I was a bit curious. Why did you decide to have a shorter document for the influencers and a much longer one for the?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, the creator charter, it was drafted after exhaustive research and a professional review process. We work very closely with Dr. David Shelley, Deputy Director at Sense and Science, and also with talent agencies and also with journalism faculties as well. But it's based on those 4 principles of journalism. And you're right, it is short. We know that influencers are pushed for time. We know that they don't really want to read pages and pages and pages of text. They want to have the principles of that. And also, being honest, it's a first iteration. But I was invited at UNESCO's invitation to speak about integrity of communication, especially around influencers, at an event as part of World Press Day a couple of months ago. And I'm sure that this code, this isn't the finished product. It might bleed into another code or something that I can work, what the IMTB members can work with UNESCO on. So that, I think that's why it was short. It's just short because brevity often wins out for time pressed influencers. I think a longer piece will turn them off when a one page four principles hopefully gets to the point. And this is the first iteration and work in progress, and we're working with very talented brains at UNESCO and other areas as well.
Oh, amazing. Exciting to follow the progress of the document then. But it's already really good. I was just curious about the different lengths. Have you noticed any positive impact from these 2 documents?
Yeah, again, we spent about a year working on that charter, and whilst we were doing it, UNESCO started looking carefully in this area. So for the Creator Charter to be and me to be invited to UNESCO to take part in this workshop on the importance of content creators and information integrity, that was a great validation to the work that we're doing in the UK. In terms of the code of conduct, as we've already said, Erika, it's in its 4th iteration. It's a fluid document, but past iterations have been noted by UK government and Parliament as an example of industry best practice. The Minister for Creative Industries, Sir Chris Bryant, he commended the code recently on the code and the uptake from the industry in becoming signatories to that code, and he hailed it as first in the world and a really important campaign. So I'm buoyed by that, but buoyed, I suppose, mainly or most importantly, by the number and the caliber of agencies and advertisers that have signed up as signatories and agreed to be bound by the code.
Ah, that's brilliant. It also shows the quality of the document, like you say, the fact that both people are mentioning it, but also that people are adhering to it. So that's really impressive work.
It's done, as I say, in concert with ISBA and the brilliant Rob Newman, their Director of Policy, and also who heads up the Influencer Marketing Working Group at ISBA. And he's done a lot of the drafting, and he's brilliant at it. But it's also done in concert with the working group at ISBA and the working group of practitioners who are, progressive, senior and progressive practitioners within our industry. And they've done a lot of work in forming, shaping, and agreeing what should be in and what should be not included within the code.
Okay. now we're going to talk payments, because that's maybe one of the points I'm working with a lot, like payment of compensation to influencers. And one news that came out maybe a month ago too is that the Creator Guild of America recently came out with a rider to protect the creators and streamline deals. And one of the points mentioned in this rider is payment terms. Is this something that is being discussed in your guidelines? And if not, why?
If not, why? I like that.
I know.
Well, listen, I'm a great fan of the work done by the Creators Guild of America. I'm in contact with the founders, Danny and Jason. I enjoyed a conversation with them some weeks ago, and we're doing a follow-up call soon. Some of the aspects contained in the rider are already covered in our code of conduct. As for payment terms, as you've mentioned, we've got to tread very carefully in the UK, to ensure that we don't contravene competition law in the UK. As an association, we represent, obviously, by definition, many private brands and agencies. And we've got to be seen that we're not setting the price in the UK, even though we're there to help try and standardise, professionalise, and work out what is fair for agencies, fair for advertisers, and fair for the creators. We've got to make sure that we don't fall foul of the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority. So in terms of payment terms, they're seen as a commercial condition like pricing, and any attempt to align them across market participants, even indirectly, even with the best of intentions, might be seen as restricting competition. So we're going to tread very carefully around that. That's not to say that we won't, but we're just going to be very cognizant of working closely with the CMA and understanding how we can work to the betterment of the industry and not to be seen to be setting the price.
Interesting. It really shows that there are so many points you need to think about when you're drafting these documents. There are so many aspects and so many things you could impact negatively or positively.
And you're absolutely right. And there's some brilliant minds within the industry trying to promote pay parity for creators. And there's a lot of evidence to show that people of colour and female influencers get paid less than their male and whiter counterparts. That's obviously wrong. But what we can't do as an industry body at the moment is sort of set what the pricing should be. Part of our code of conduct says that each person should look, as in each agency and each brand, should look at their own pricing models and make sure that they're representative and fair. But we can't really say what fair looks like, because we might be then seen to be setting the pricing within the market.
Interesting. Are you thinking about creating some kind of rider yourself, something that could be plugged into influencer agreements?
Well, as I say, I mean, that's part of the reason, apart from them being nice guys, that's part of the reason for chatting with Danny and Jason at the CGA. Again, we said that part of what is covered in the rider is already covered in our code of conduct. So part of it is just seeing what other people are doing in other jurisdictions. How can we learn from each other? But, we would love to have more of a say on what pricing looks like. And again, to professionalize, to standardize, to make fair what pricing looks like, what payment terms looks like, understanding that, influencers or creators are often a one-man band, and they're not like a holding company that can wait 60 days, 90 days, even 180 days for payment. They really need to be paid, within X amount, 30 days. Might seem reasonable, but as a trade body, we can't say what looks like, what is reasonable, because that might be seen as interfering or setting the price. But part of the role of the work that I do, the Influencer Marketing Trade Body, is to see what is happening in other jurisdictions and learn from them and see how we can harness best practice to push our own industry forward in the UK.
Brilliant. Do you know if other trade bodies or authorities in other countries are doing similar work than what you are doing at the IMTB?
Yeah, and I'm delighted that last year IMTB co-founded the European Influencer Marketing Alliance, along with our counterparts UMIC, who I know you're friends of in France, and BVIM in Germany. We've been working very hard these last months to grow that base of influencer trade bodies around Europe, and hopefully we'll be in a position to announce some new members to our alliance. So I know that UMIC and BVIM, they have their own codes of conduct, and they're very vocal in promoting best practice in their own jurisdictions. What we're trying to do is the alliance is help other countries set up their own trade bodies and then learn from each other in terms of what does best practice look like, how, where does the European Commission come in, where does self-regulation and an industry basis come in, and an industry level, sort of a local jurisdiction level come in.
Mm. I feel like a lot of authorities right now are quite open in kind of trying to help each other and sharing best practices and data. Mohamed Mansouri from the RRPP was also talking about sharing strategies when it comes to using AI and things like that. I think it's a very positive development of the industry.
I think I would agree with you, Erika. And in the UK, we've learned a lot from other adjacent channels. So we are part of the working group for within the Advertising Association's Trust in Advertising. So we don't profess to know lots about other forms of or other channels of advertising. We have a deep knowledge and understanding of influencer marketing. So we can bring that to the Advertising Association or ISBA. But ISBA's been around for 100 years. We've been around for 3 years, so we're always going to learn a lot more from them. But we have the as I say, the subject matter expertise within influencer marketing to sort of drive that conversation. So we're learning from each other. The European Influencer Marketing Alliance, or IAMA, is interesting and it's very exciting because there are only a few members, because there are only a few influencer marketing trade bodies around Europe, but more and more are cropping up, and more are interested in joining the alliance. And the IAMA was an industry member of IASA, who you'll know is the European Advertising Standards Alliance, the body for self-regulators around advertising, self-regulators around Europe. So already we're brand new and only have a small numbers. Numbers are growing in terms of membership, but we're already hooked straight into the leading alliance of self-regulators for Europe.
Impressive progress. I know we touched about it a little bit before, but I would really like to know more about what's your main focus right now at the IMTB.
Main focus, I've got to be honest, it's growth. It's growing membership, it's growing our collective voice, and it's growing the number of signatories to our code of conduct. What we're doing at the IMTB is we're really adding. I say we're growing membership very strongly. And we have a very high retention rate. So that shows us two things. One, that there's a need for a body like the IMTB, and that the IMTB is providing at least sufficient value for all of our members to return year after year. So that's very good. We're concentrating on more engagement for our members. So lots more events, lots more webinars, lots more best practice, lots more briefing notes whenever something happens within the industry. We're looking at more in-person events as well. We're opening up the board seats. At the moment, we've got 2 more board seats which we will announce in early July. So those are the sorts of things we're doing internally. Externally, we are working with, as part of IAMA, as part of the European Influencer Marketing Alliance. We're working with other jurisdictions like the CGA in America. We're working with other jurisdictions like Australia and India as well. Not necessarily at the moment on a formalized basis, but but we have regular conversations about sharing best practice and what works in different jurisdictions, or why some things don't work in other jurisdictions as well. So those are things. Those are the main things we're looking at. Also, I think something that we've been monitoring for a few years is kids as consumers and kids as creators. We're going to see a lot more focus on children as influencers, and I know in France there's a law around child influencers. We'll see more of that in the UK. If not in statutory legislation, then we'll see some frameworks put in place for self-regulation.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. I feel like many countries have come out with laws regulating the influencer industry. It could be as a whole, or like you said, for children specifically, or that are more like advertisement based. What are your thoughts on the influencer marketing kind of like service being increasingly regulated and the emergence of such laws?
What do we think about influencer marketing regulations? Well, I often get that. I know that it's slightly different maybe in Europe, but in the UK, influencer marketing has always been regulated because it's been seen as an advertising form. And so it's always been a part of the CAPCOs, the Committee of Advertising Practice rules and regulations imposed on advertising and enforced by the ASA. So there's always been these rules and regulations. What the IMTB has been doing in the last 3 years is building awareness of those rules and regulations and working with the ASA and its sister organisation, Committee of Advertising Practice, of which IMTB is a board member now. So we're building awareness of the rules and regulations. And rather than sort of being a force like a policeman telling people off, I think it's the way these rules and regulations are positioned. Self-regulation is a lever for economic growth. It's not a brake on putting a brake. It's not a stopper of economic growth. It's a real lever for economic growth, because without it, you lose the trust for the consumer, and the industry lives or dies on consumer trust. So that's why it's so important. I think we talked a bit earlier about how influencer marketing has grown up in the last few years. And I think in the UK, governments and regulators and other trade bodies, they get it. They understand that it's not a fad, and they understand that they're serious and senior people plying a trade in this area. But I think we're got to be careful that the pendulum doesn't swing too far the other way, where there was seen to be not enough regulation, and now possibly there's too much regulation. I don't think there needs to be more regulation. I do think that more influencers need to abide by the existing regulation, and we're seeing that it's ticking up, possibly not as fast as everybody wants it around Europe, but we saw a 22% increase in compliance rates from Advertising Standards Authority in a sweep that it did last year, that they reported on a couple of weeks ago, compared with one that they did 3 years ago. So 22% uplift on the last one. Still work to do, still work in progress, but I think 22% uplift is pretty impressive in 3 years.
Yeah, it's a positive trend, definitely. Okay, so I think I already know your answer for my next question, which is soft law versus hard law. I think if I understood correctly your argument,
this might not come as a great surprise to you or to your viewers, but yeah, I'm a great proponent for soft law, self-advertising regulation. Why? I think it's good for consumers. It protects citizens. And it's quick at protecting citizens. Self-regulation allows the consumer, quick response to consumers and their issues. It allows you to respond quickly and efficiently, And it can be updated. It can change swiftly. It doesn't take years to get run through Parliament and then to be amended. It can be done, very quickly through industry. And of course, industry are the subject matter experts. Not politicians. Politicians rely on subject matter experts, so we should be able to know what is best. It builds trust, so it's good for consumers, contributes to brand reputation, and it's good for policymakers. It complements the existing laws. So no surprise there. I'm a great fan of softer rules, as you say them, rather than hard regulations or advertising self-regulation.
I think that makes sense because, as you said, there is already quite a lot of legislation covering most aspects that are being done in an activity as an influencer on social media.
And listen, there's a hard stop. The ASA works with Ofcom in the UK, and it works with the Competition and Markets Authority. Competition and Markets Authority has new powers of enforcement now. It used to have to go to the courts if it wanted to chase someone down, what they alleged wrongdoing. Now they can levy a fine, which is up to 10% of global revenue. So there is that regulatory or the statutory regulation hard stop. But in the first instance, we're great proponent of self-regulation.
Interesting. Thank you. I think one interesting thing is emerging trends. There are emerging trends all the time, but is there a trend you are keeping an extra eye on right now?
Yeah, I think we touched on it already, but emerging trends, there are two of them. Is AI, of course, naturally. The opportunities, the challenges that AI represents. Lots of wonderful, powerful things for agencies, for consumers, for regulators. Lots of really important things that they're doing. The ASA harnesses AI now to become more proactive. It doesn't have to wait for someone to make a complaint about an ad. They're actively looking at ads through the use of AI. They monitored 28 million ads last year, and they're only going to ramp that up year on year. So AI can be, works really well, allows creators to translate their content into different languages and put in some, at the blink of an eye, and put in, what am I trying to say? Put in other language, in other text in other languages. Lots of very positive ways for making content more effective and more efficient. But there are also there's other things that we need to look at in terms of deep fakes, in terms of misleading consumers as well. So AI, lots of positives, but also lots of questions or threats that we need to get our head around. And the other thing is the maturation of measurement and evaluation. More and more money is coming in to our industry in terms of budget sizes for influencer marketing. That obviously is amazing. That's to be applauded. We want to see more of that. How can we ensure more of that? By being able to measure effectively how that money is spent and what the return on investment is. So moving away from vanity metrics, moving towards intent metrics and impact metrics, and what the sentiment is as well within measurement as well. So I think those are the two things that are kind of really driving the industry at the moment.
Okay. Are there any recent studies or publications you found interesting and want to share?
Yeah, I will. I'll hit you up with two, if that's all right. There is WPP's Media's next year, 2025 Global Mid-Year Forecast. That was published very recently. One of the key stats that came out of it was that more than half of content-driven advertising revenue this year will come out of influencers. So that is a big eye opener. And the other one, going back to the Creators Charter, comes from the recently published Reuters Digital News Report 2025, which says that news influencers, they acknowledge them as a growing alternative to the media ecosystem because they appeal to audiences that don't that the traditional media struggles to engage with. But also, that very positive, you need to capture particularly younger audiences and make them interested in the news and where they are in the world. But there's also potential misinformation through some of the influences causing through their lack of verification, and that goes back to the 4 principles of the creators' charter. So there you go, 2 for the price of 1. 2 things that I've read in the last couple of weeks that I think are really important to our industry for different reasons.
Oh, definitely, it's interesting. Even the point you're discussing about sharing news on social media, because even news, how we say, like for example, in Sweden we have SVT, we have different news channels. They seem to also want to start publishing more on social media, but even them have, it's quite hard to find a way to share that information in a way where you hold the standards and we actually communicate enough information to follow the right standards, basically. So it is hard even for them.
Yes, and there's some interesting work done by the branded content. I never get this right. The branded content. I'll have to look it up. But it is a think tank run out of UAL, which is the University of the Arts, London, and Professor Jonathan Hardy, who makes these similar points. He talks about the blurring of news and entertainment, news and marketing. And also says that, there are often more regulations imposed on a teenage TikToker than there are on a traditional media celebrity, if you like. So, there's work to be done from all angles on this. But I think it's obviously really important. It's important, we're all influencers now. Every time we go on LinkedIn, we're trying to influence someone, to do something, or so it's just thinking before you press send or publish, just thinking about, is it accurate? Has it been checked? Could it harm someone? Could it incite someone? So I think these are media literacy techniques that we all should need to learn, in 2025.
Definitely. I feel this conversation could go on forever. It's very interesting. It's kind of like a even every time you talk about something else, there are so many other doors that open and so many other
well, hopefully you'll invite me
aspects.
back if this is a success, Erika. I'm very happy to come back and talk more if you or your viewers are interested in this.
No, of course, I'm sure they are. There are a lot of very interesting topics brought up, but I see that we are already going a bit over time, so I think the interview will slowly need to come to an end. But before we go, could you please share some final advice to everyone listening when it comes to influencer collaborations on social media?
Well, I think this is a self plug. I think if you're interested in collaborations, interested in influencer marketing, just read through the codes of conduct that we have. That should give you a steer on things that you might not have thought about, before you read it. Whether it is about representation, whether it is about fair payment, whether it's about making sure you're not greenwashing, whether it's about, do I work with a virtual influencer? They're great because I control the message, but is it authentic? Lots of things. I would, it's a self plug, so forgive me, but I would start with that and then work out from there.
No, of course, that sounds good. And do you have anything else you want to share? Information, social media details, so people can follow you or the
I'm
IMTB?
always very bad at this. Apart from plugging the code, I'm very bad at self promotion. But just check out the website, the imtb.org.uk. That has a growing area of resources, really for the UK, but we are growing that resource section at the moment to incorporate elements of Europe and further afield. So check out the website imtb.org.uk.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Please do not hesitate to visit the website and check out all the interesting documents we discussed during the interview. This interview will be posted in the newsletter, but we will also post it on social media later as well. And thank you very much for a very interesting conversation, and see you during the next interviews.
Thank you and goodbye. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.